Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the DS Show. I'm joined by my good friend Jofi Alexander, who's joining us from Johannesburg today, although he's based out of the UK. Welcome to the show, Jofi.
Hey, Daanish. Yeah, nice to be here, and thank you for the personal invitation to join your podcast series. So yeah, lovely to see you again.
Yeah, likewise. It's great to see you. Now, Jofi, your official title is?
My official title is I'm the Regional Director for Anaplan here in Africa. So I look after our Africa business.
Wonderful. Now, Jofi, you and I had a chance to connect in the UK. It was so great seeing you at the Anaplan Connect, and I think it's always been kind of a mutual respect where we've been connected on LinkedIn, at least over the duration of my time in the Anaplan ecosystem. And, I've seen all the great work you're doing on LinkedIn and social media. And I think this conversation will be a great chance for our audience to get to know you a little bit better. So with that, why don't you go ahead and give a little introduction of yourself? What were you doing before Anaplan and what are you doing now?
So before Anaplan, okay, I mean, I've been in the, I would say, EPM space for just over 3 decades. So I'm in this industry for about 30 years. And my background, I originally started in business intelligence, sort of solutions, data warehousing, reporting technologies. And over the years, I moved into more planning focused. I was looking at, solutions to help businesses really plan their way forward. So this was in the day of, I don't know whether most of the viewers may know of the technology, but was a company called Express. It was owned by a company called IRI Software, the American organization who developed a multi-dimensional OLAP engine called Express. And ultimately, that company got acquired. I was there for a couple of years straight after university, and it got acquired by Oracle. And Oracle acquired it because of its complementary fit to its relational database. And we had 2 solutions on top of the Express sort of engine. One was a FP&A financial planning and analysis solution for helping organizations do their budgeting planning processes. And the other solution was more focused on sales and helping organizations, looking at sales and how they basically perform in the marketplace. So those were the 2 sorts of point solutions that sat on Express. And Express also had the ability to build custom applications as well. So customers or partners would develop solutions. So very much similar to what we see today, but I would say, it was very forward thinking. I mean, there was nothing out there at the time. And, what excited me about joining that company was the fact of this ability to model data in the way that businesses really see the data, rather than it being in flat files and relying on spreadsheets and stuff. And that was one of the reasons why I entered into that space. But after Oracle acquired it, I actually left Oracle around 2000, and I spent 8 years actually running a business, an EPS consulting business. We started off with Oracle, but over time we brought in technologies from SAP, Microsoft, and we became an agnostic sort of consultancy to help guide companies on their selection of a planning tool. And I was one of there was 4 partners that all ex-Oracle, but we did pretty well with that business. And ultimately, there was a downturn, but we managed to exit into a wider group, a company in the UK. And yeah, that's basically sort of before. I then left due to personal circumstances. I left the sort of, I would say, the planning space. I went more into big data, and I joined a company. Actually went back to IRI. IRI really redeveloped itself with new technology, and I headed up their Northern European sales team to take the technology which they had, which was a system called RPM, into retailers and also consumer goods companies. So helping those specific industries actually leverage the data that they have to really perform better as an organization. So it was still involved in data, but it was more helping things like, marketing mix models, for example. It could be around retail execution, on-shelf availability, and it's helping various parts of those organizations, different users, to leverage the data to help drive better value. But the data was still historic data. It wasn't really forward looking. And then I started getting a bit sort of, I was looking at the sort of what was happening in the marketplace, and what I could see was a lot of technology was shifting to the cloud. There was a SaaS, the SaaS sort of was taking off. So Salesforce, in around 2000, we were using Salesforce in the company that I was running. We'd implemented the CRM system, but we could see this big take up of SaaS-based solutions. And I was thinking that, from a tech sales point of view, I wanted to get into that area. So rather than being like on-prem type based solutions, I wanted to get some experience. And ultimately, I ended up joining Salesforce. And within Salesforce, I was within their marketing cloud business. So it's using the data to run multi-channel communications. So interacting with consumers, who are doing online shopping, for example, through email, through SMS, through the website, personalization. So all of that was really interesting. And, I think one of the reasons why it triggered in my mind was up till that point, we were seeing lots and lots of parcels being delivered to my house. And I was wondering what's going on here, because my wife's ordering stuff online, and I'm thinking there's something happening, because this online sort of presence is starting to take off. So I thought I wanted to be part of that. So I left the sort of EPM, the BI space, and then went and worked for Salesforce for about 3 years. And then I get a call from a recruiter. I won't mention his name, but he's a lovely person. He called me and said, I want to spend like 5 minutes of your time. I'd like to just explain Anaplan. And I've never heard of Anaplan at the time. And it was like, this was in, I'm just thinking, 2018. And he said, look, I just need 5 minutes of your time. I'll explain it. And within 2 minutes, what he explained, I got what he was trying to say. And it was addressing all the pain points that I would say was what we're facing with the legacy technologies. So, the likes of Hyperion, the likes of Cognos, TM1, Datum, all of those technologies. And I said, well, if you're telling me what you're doing, and he said, look, listen, go and watch some of the videos, look at the customer stories, and these customer stories were amazing. And to be able to hear firsthand from these customers about the power of Anaplan, and I thought, okay, I'm interested in it, and it's been history from that. I met the team. I was lucky enough to know a few people. My sort of the leadership team, I was connected via LinkedIn, of course. So there was good connections. It's a small world, the EPM space. So there's a lot of crossover between different companies. So yeah, it was nice. It was welcoming. The company was pre-IPO, and it was going places, right? I just felt a good vibe, a startup, but they had a great solution. And I'm here now. It's almost 8 years, and I'm still loving it. It's I've reinvented myself a few times within Anaplan, but the role I'm doing now is just amazing. It brings everything that I've done to date in my career to fruition, and it really it's a joy to do the role. So I'm really, really happy and blessed to be here doing what I do. So that's a little background. I think it was probably longer than you were expecting, but it gives you a scene of where I've come from and where I am at the moment.
Yeah, certainly appreciate, your journey, and it seems like each stop along the way has provided some, I guess, notches along your journey to where it's built you up to where you are now. Now, it's interesting you mentioned you started Anaplan in 2018. I think we were just a few months apart when we joined Anaplan. Can you talk a little bit about what you've seen in terms of the evolution of Anaplan from when you started to where it is now?
Yeah, I think the technology was great. It was for people who maybe not aware, but there was a classic user experience, and it was very much Excel look and feel. So the users loved it because it very much Excel. They could get straight in, they can build their reports, and it didn't really look the part, and I think that was probably one thing what really would have definitely helped being better from a user experience point of view. But the whole point about it was the leadership there, Michael Gold and the team were more focused on getting the engine, the behind the scenes, the engine powers everything, right? And that was where the focus was to make sure that the system was scalable, that it can handle the huge volumes of data, the huge number of use cases customers want to be using it for. I think they made the right decision, because just focusing on a nice front end and a nice user experience doesn't necessarily cut it, because when you start to bring data in, your system can't scale and it can't handle it. So that's, I would say that was one of the things which I saw, but I understand the reasons why. The investments to date, I mean, Anaplan, with its new owners, Thomas Bravo, we have $500 million of funds investment just into our product, and the roadmap that was announced last year, so over the 3 years, so we're already into that investment plan. We definitely see huge advancements in and the speed of these developments, these things coming out of our product teams, and the teams are looking at things such as the ADO, Anaplan data orchestration, the workflow, AI. I mean, AI, if you haven't seen it more recently, the co-modeler, the co-planner, all the autonomous and anomaly agents and so on, is just mind-blowing, and it's just going to bring so much power to the end user community, and it's going to really make Anaplan pervasive across an organization. We talk about connected planning, but realistically, the time to market is something that we're trying to address, right? That we're trying to get value quicker, and we want to make sure that our customers can own this across the enterprise. So it's not just going to be ring fenced in one or two departments. It's going to become such a strategic platform. And I talk about Anaplan as a platform. Some people say it's a tool. It is a platform because it will sit as a layer on top of all these systems and provide the infrastructure to support your decision making and enhancing decision excellence within the organization. So I think it's crucial for companies to differentiate us versus our competition, and our platform is the best in breed, and Gartner call us the FP&A platform, on a single source code. It's really, really powerful. So that investment is a huge thing I see today. I'm just trying to think of anything else, but I'm happy to hear any other questions that you have.
Yeah, and we'll certainly circle back around. I think there's some interesting follow-ups to that. But before we dive into some of those questions, just back to your journey. You've spent some time, I think in the past, in different kind of regions around the globe, kind of focusing on those regions and kind of bringing to market the technologies that you've been working with. Can you talk a little bit about what it's been like servicing different parts of the globe, and what is that kind of learning brought to you? Because I'd imagine that different regions kind of have their own little nuances when it comes to selling or technology.
Yeah, I mean, what I see, I mean, I've been working in the UK, across Europe. I've also had the opportunity, within my career, both at Salesforce and here at Anaplan, to break, start, not as I break, but break into those markets, right? To establish our brand in Middle East. So I was part of the Middle East team over a year and a half ago, and it was really to help establish Anaplan as a footprint in there. So along with my colleagues, Andrew Haas, who's my RVP, and colleagues who were with Anaplan, also to break into it, just to get the brand awareness was key. And then now, more importantly, I'm here in Africa, with a pretty much fresh slate to define, see how we want to grow this. So, but the different, as you asked the questions, how do I see differences? Yeah, there's more maturity in the knowledge of EPM, the understanding of the concepts of multi-dimensional planning sort of solutions. I think there's still an education that still needs to be done, but I think it's happening at such a pace, with AI and technologies like that are starting to really take off in organizations. The countries in the Middle East, for example, are leapfrogging over from where we have been over the last sort of 10 years, going to more the future looking investments, so investing in technologies like an Anaplan to be able to take them forward from using and empowering them their end users. So I see that the markets are different in maturity levels, but I see the appetite and the hunger to do something differently. We see there are a number of themes that the reason why organizations are talking to us, there's a lot of external volatility in the marketplace, and planning as we know it from before is not necessarily an annual process anymore. It's going to be something that needs to be always on. And I think having technologies and a platform to underpin an always on planning process is what organizations are now searching for. Other things around disparate data, because over the years, many organizations have many systems. They are either buying from multiple vendors, they may be building their own systems, and they are saying that there's too many systems to manage and to integrate to provide a sensible place for planning. And we at Anaplan, we call the process, because what happens is typically these end users in these different departments are taking data out of those source systems and they put it into spreadsheets, and these are homegrown little cottage industries that come springing everywhere within the organization. And what that means is that it just creates this big mess, and we call it the messy middle, which is a phrase that's been there for many years, but that's the problem that Anaplan set out to address. And this messy middle is something that these prospects, everyone we're talking to, is saying we need to get the best out of the data now, and give the information in an actionable format to our end users. And then there are a number of other themes. So we talk about that. They also talk about driving more efficiencies. Efficiencies being, you've got assets like your people, your data, your processes, but they feel like those are broken, and there are silo planning decisions being made. So the third area is how do you bring these people together in a connected way? But I would say the fourth theme that we are seeing in all our conversations is AI is now on the agenda, and how it's not necessarily just chat GPT, it's how can we embrace the data that we've got, the people, the processes, but how do we use AI to complement that? And that's something that's coming now more and more onto the topic. And we've been using our systems, our solutions have AI for many years. It's not something that we've just jumped on the bandwagon. It's been integral to our platform from the very early days. So those are the themes that we're seeing, and I'm seeing that common across all markets that I've been working in. But it's just those would be the themes I would say are What are you seeing anything different, or is that something you agree with? Or
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm happy to jump into some of the AI conversation now. I think, at least from a customer base standpoint, you'll see across the board pretty much all the executive boards, investor committees, everyone's looking for how do we get AI into our suite of technology somehow. Right? It's kind of this magical buzzword being thrown around, AI. I think Anaplan is a real opportunity to really capture some of that chatter and leverage that to its advantage. Especially because it has that wealth of AI under its belt over the course of several years, right? And when it comes to some of the roadmap that they've laid out, whether it's co-modeler, co-planner, whether it's the AI agents that are on the roadmap anticipated for, I think it was next year, early first quarter, second quarter, something like that. It's really positioned well to capture some of that market where the demand is there. And I think right now it's such a buzzword that if you can somehow deploy something tangible and convert this abstract buzzword into something real, tangible that can really, provide investors and companies value. I think that's a prime opportunity to capture some real estate.
Yeah, and with the AI built into the applications, a lot of the best practices that we're seeing, the type of questions or the
Mm.
insights the end users want to get out of it, are being embedded into the application strategy. So all the modules that have been released as part of the app strategy will have the AI capabilities built in. So there will be, of course, a journey of maturity around AI and how end users are adopting it, but we're taking that experience and we're deploying it through. So it gives them at least a starting point to be able to leverage AI in an easy to use way, whether that's like asking a question on the data or speaking it through voice. But yeah, it's moving at such a pace that we're going to see what it's going to be like in a few months or next year. It's going to be totally different as well. So we'll just have to wait and see how it all turns out.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think it's an interesting time because I think AI is kind of this ghost that doesn't have too much regulation around it at the moment. Where and the market is so hot, it almost reminds me of like the dot-com bubble, right? Like where everyone was so excited for this new advancement in technology, and people were kind of going bonkers over it, right? And I think those that have the opportunity now should really, really focus and capture that, right, while it's still
Yeah,
piping hot.
yeah, absolutely. But it's exciting times to be in the space. So
Mhm,
and yeah, no, I just feel like it's a very interesting space
mhm,
because the sorts of things that we as professionals are going into customers. I know we're going to address issues around data integration, and we're looking at connecting this data and that
mhm,
data. But the questions that we're helping answer, I think really has an impact to the end consumer, to the end person on the street, right? So,
mhm,
um, so I think we sometimes tend to forget about who ultimately is going to get the benefit of all of this. And my views when I go and meet customers, I always ask, ultimately, once you've done your planning better, what does it actually mean? And okay, yes, it's going to help you improve internal processes and X, Y, and Z, but what impact would it have on your customer?
mhm,
And I think that's quite key because we sometimes just forget what it actually means. If they're able to optimize their inventories, be able to get the right products to the people on time, you'll get the right product, the right place, the right time, for example.
mhm.
So all of these things are important as an end user, not an end user, but as an end consumer. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which we all are, right? Which we all are.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Now, just thinking back to your career journey, you mentioned you took a bit of an entrepreneurial route during your journey. Are you able to speak a little bit more about just kind of what that was like, and how have you seen some of the things you picked up then translate into your career now?
Wow, that's a big question. I would say that this role in Africa, I've had to draw on all my experiences, from the days when I set up with my co-founders. We were called In Group at the time, and specializing EPM, but we had to do everything. Like you had to be the salesperson. You had to do when you start a business from scratch, you need to go and do the marketing. You're going to have to do the lead generation,
Mhm,
all of those things. You create the marketing materials, presentations. So you're pretty much wearing lots and lots of different hats. And the time at Salesforce, that was just amazing. I mean, that was my dream job. Actually, I went there with my intention of, this was my end of career job. I'll be here till I retire,
mhm,
not knowing that Anaplan company would sort of turn up on my doorstep. But it did give me grounding in SaaS, their enablement, their way that they go to market, how they sell, the discipline around the sales cycles, and the team. The collaboration of all the people, like they work together as a village to work. It was just on a totally different level. I know when you work for sort of small, medium-sized organizations that you don't get that exposure, but I was blown away. I was literally the first year of joining Salesforce, went to Dreamforce, and we in San Francisco. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, this was a company event, and there's something like, I don't know, over 100,000 people at this event, and it's just on a totally different scale. But the good thing there was that I joined the best SaaS company in the world, and they're the ones pretty much created SaaS as a sort of offering, and I learned from the best, and that helped ground me for bringing Anaplan to market. Anaplan wasn't really a known product; we were the best kept secret, and in a way, when you would see customers in the early days, they weren't very vocal about it, but they loved Anaplan. When you would meet them, it was like, yeah, we love Anaplan. Bye-bye spreadsheets. But I think just a combination of all those different experiences has helped. And with Anaplan here, looking after Africa, I'm so blessed to have a great team behind me. It's a virtual team. We don't have anyone employed here in Africa, so a year and a half now in this market, and we're making good strides. We've got some really good partnerships that we've established here locally in the market here. So we've got some very good customers. We've got a number of customer testimonials already on video, so the plan with Anaplan. So we've got 5 videos already created here, and we've got another 4 lined up for next week. So we've got customers wanting to talk about Anaplan, and the word's getting out. We've got over 150 people registered next week for our very first Connect in Cape Town. So it's from like a year and a half ago, where there was no knowledge of Anaplan really in the brand in the marketplace, to now, many people know about Anaplan. We've got some really great logos, and I think we're literally just we're just starting here. So I'm looking forward to next Tuesday. So we've got a great lineup there. So, but it's all it's a lot of hard work, late nights, a lot of travel. I mean, I've been traveling to South Africa every month for the last 18 months, on average around 10 days. Sometimes I've been here 3 weeks. So people do see me on LinkedIn posting, and I love posting. I love people to understand what the journey is, and we're trying to do something special for this region. Africa is great. The people are really remarkable. They're very genuine. Everyone I've worked with has just been totally positive. They're looking for transforming their businesses for better way of working, to drive better value, and also to drive growth and economic growth for their markets, and also for Africa. So I can't wish for anything better, and I think it's now accelerating. We've got quite a few partners sponsoring our event next week. We've got a lot of other partners from Anaplan community interested as well, joining into the Africa market. So over the next 6 to 12 months, you'll see another sort of further take up. But it's a collaboration. We can't do this on our own. We're working very closely with partners, and the big partners here in the market in Africa. There's three. I would say there's Deloitte, of course, globally. They're a big partner for Anaplan. We have Bedford Consulting, who have actually been instrumental in some of the early projects in Africa. And then we've got a new partner called VenCube. They are in 20 years in EPM, but they are in the IBM TM1 space, and they've reskilled their entire team, and they're going to market with Anaplan here in the market. But there are other partners that are not so sort of proactive, but they're there. And there are other partners coming into the market, such as Elite EPM, Keyrus. We've got Flowplan. We've got companies like that who are also here in Africa. But the ones that are really proactive, I would say Deloitte, Bedford, and VenCube. So, but I'm happy to talk to any partners. So there's a message out there. If you're interested in Africa, please contact me, and we'll have conversations.
Yeah.
So sorry about the.
No. Totally fine. We're a part of the partner community, and certainly appreciate all the hustle and drive that goes into making Anaplan what it is. So, we're very friendly towards our partners. They've done, this whole ecosystem has been great for me, and as well for you. So Uh,
I remember your post. Remember it really well because you posted. It was really personal and very humble to do that, and I think that was very brave of you actually to put that. You're looking for a job, and you had a photo where you had I don't know, it was like a white flip chart or something you were holding up.
yeah, poster.
And
Mhm.
poster, yeah. And I think, it's the sort of people we are looking for, who have that guts to do something, to transform, and so no, I really respect that. And I also have been watching your journey as well through your from being just a consultant, I mean, say just being a consultant, but being a consultant and learning the ropes, and taking this, but now giving back to others who are also similar, situation where you were several years ago. So it's sort of come full circle, right?
Yeah,
So how
yeah.
does it feel for you, like, to get where you've asked me about my sort of background, but how have you felt from where you were when you started to where you are today?
That's a great question, though. Certainly, that's very kind of you. I think it's been quite fascinating and remarkable. It was kind of, I don't even know what Anaplan was when I was holding up that sign, right? Like, and it just sort of found me, is what I tell people, right? Anytime I ask people, like, how'd you find Anaplan? I'm like, no, it found me.
Yeah,
um, and just kind of from my early days at Anaplan to go into consulting, climbing that certification ladder, getting those projects under my belt, eventually going independent, and then this is now my second Anaplan partnership that I've established. And um, there's like, I think what's been fascinating is just how nice and how kind the Anaplan community has been from the moment I started to even today where I am now. And I think for me now, being in a position where I am able to give back, uh, it,
hmm,
I almost feel it's like a duty upon me to pay it forward,
yeah,
right, to those that may need that. And I think alongside that, I think a testament to our brand is now we're kind of establishing ourselves kind of more seriously in different parts of the world, and as well as to our customer base. Like, we recently had our customers up on stage at the Anaplan Connect in San Jose, and I think that was a big milestone moment. Like, hey, look, we actually seriously belong, in this community. We're not just a good feel good story, right? We actually have tangible deliverables that we're providing to some important industries. So I think it's a sense of gratitude, and I'm not going to lie and pretend that it's been a complete smooth sailing, in one direction. There's bumps in the road that come along the way, and there's moments.
absolutely.
I'm sure as an entrepreneur yourself, you can relate where you've had moments where you're like, should I keep going, right? Or is it time to pivot or whatnot? But I think when you kind of push through some of those doubts that you may have, it's when you have the biggest breakthrough. So,
Yeah, and I think, based on what you just said there about giving back, I think it's important, when you're in a career, whatever your role is, there's always something you can give back to help someone else.
hmm,
And I spend a good chunk of my time helping people reviewing their CVs. Right, they've seen a job on Anaplan, or they want some advice. That's something easy you can do. You can factor time in to do it, and just by spending that time just guiding them, because you've seen what works and what doesn't work, and you can, the person's basically saying the right things, but doesn't come out on the paper.
hmm,
So I've done that, and I've helped place, I think, 4 or 5 people in the time I've been at Anaplan, and it's helped them course correct their career. I mean, from where they were sort of stuck in a hole, and you get a good feeling, and it's nice to be able to do that. There's no
absolutely.
there's nothing, as a sort of payback. These are helping people connect with partners, for example. So a number of these individuals have gone to work for partners, and also other customers. So one of my connections, he managed to get a role in JLR, for example. So from being unemployed for many months, he was at my church, and we were just talking about it, and he explained to me what he does in Excel, and I said, well, I think you could easily do Anaplan. I think you've got the right sort of
Hmm,
temperament, you've got the right background, and things that you're describing, you will love Anaplan. So anyway, I managed to get him access to Anaplan's training environment. He got certified up to level 3 within, I think, within a 6 to 8 week period.
Mm.
And he then went on to get a job very successfully. So yeah, he's still there. But the giving back doesn't stop. And it just sort of highlights one of the things that I'm actually going to announce next Tuesday is we're doing something here in Africa. There's a lot of I would say, low-income families, who can't afford to send their children to university, and we're partnering up with a university called the Maharishi Institute here in Johannesburg, and they basically sponsor children to come in and do their university degrees. What we're going to do is we're going to tie in an Anaplan certification program in conjunction with Deloitte, and we're going to start in November. We're going to do a decision making your hands taster session. So we're going to get 20 of the graduates who are in the institute at the moment into a day session with Anaplan and Deloitte. We're going to get them sort of hands-on to Anaplan. They'll play with it, build the models, build the dashboards, and they'll be able to ask questions about what they need to look out for career advice and stuff. So we'll be doing that. But then out of that, we're hoping that some of those students actually like Anaplan and they want to get certification, and then we're going to have a certification track. So level 1, level 2, level 3 will be, and Deloitte are going to provide VTO days for their consultants to support it. So it's just a way of being able to give back to these students that may never have had a chance to access Anaplan or technologies like Anaplan. And it also gives them a bit more onto their CV. So they're going out with a degree, but they've got a solution, a certification on something that is actually being used in the marketplace. So we're going to announce it next week. You've just had a sneak preview of my announcement, but it's going to be announced to the customers and the prospects that are in there. So those companies will be looking to hire model builders. They may want to take some graduates. So this could be quite a nice formula to really drive value back into the ecosystem here, just to, spread the word, of course, of Anaplan, but to give those students the ability to have something really cutting edge technology on their CV. So that's just something we're doing to give back. And it's not always all about sales, but doing these sort of things, it opens eyes of companies and also it opens the opportunity. So it's something sort of mid to long term that will hopefully come to fruition. But we're doing that as a sort of giving back into the community. So
yeah, that's amazing, Jofi, and I think that's a really, sometimes we get caught up in this day to day, and you got to grow the business, and you have to build sales, and you have to do this, and you have to do that. But I think that's really remarkable, and I think it's great that yourself and Anaplan and the partners are really taking time to think and give back to the community. I think sometimes we don't do that perhaps enough or as much as we should, and I generally share a lot of those sentiments where I still get people reaching out today where
yeah,
they're looking for some help or they need this or that for their career. And even though I may not be able to hire them at that moment, like at least steering them in the right direction, I think.
I think it's all about connections. It's about just having those connections, and LinkedIn definitely helps us
Mhm.
bridge those. And exactly as you say, you might not be able to take a person on, but of another company or a customer that might be looking. There may be another angle that they may not even thought about, that you could say, well, have you thought about doing X, Y, Z? So I think it's more about having that conversation openly and having the time to do it, right? And I think if you've got a kind heart and you're willing to give back, something, I think it's important, for the future. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the best feelings, especially when you see somebody that several years later you bump into them and look at where they are now, kind of thing, right? And it's one of the most rewarding feelings. And actually,
Yeah.
it did spark a thought for me as we kind of look to wrap up here too. You mentioned the model builder program in Africa, and just generally, I think both of us on LinkedIn, we perhaps get our fair share of folks reaching out. Um,
Yeah.
in terms of just advice, you have two questions. In terms of advice, one for anyone looking to get into the entrepreneurial space, that's currently maybe in industry or consulting or what have you, what advice would you have for any entrepreneurs out there? And secondly, anyone looking to break into sales or have a similar line of business as to what you are doing today, one who wants to follow your footsteps?
Yeah. Oh, two very good questions. Okay, around the entrepreneurial space, I think we're in a timely space now where things are getting shaken up left, right, and center. Right, even the ERP market is getting a shake up with new AI platforms that can do ERP not the way it's been done in the past, but it's been totally rethought, leveraging new technologies and infrastructure that's going to make things more just easier, right? So there's definitely things that are happening, and I think if you were looking at something where AI is a core element of it, and going back to just understanding principles of what AI is, and making sure it's addressing a business problem, I think there's definitely scope there. I know the application strategy that we're taking has AI embedded in it. That's definitely a area where if the questions related to starting an Anaplan business, then I think this is a great time, because as an application strategy, we're focusing on core applications, the core common ones. But we spoke just before the call about for the film industry, there are very specific industries where we're probably not going to build out a use case for them, right? And that's where partners or an individual who's got that domain knowledge and the vision to take something as a service, to be able to just empower those users, because they're on legacy technologies. They are struggling with spreadsheets. If you can bring a value proposition around something that is linked to something you're passionate about, I think you will make more success, rather than going into, I'm going to be another EPM consulting and I'm going to do all there's just model building. You're going to compete with lots and lots of parties. But if you're going in with a solution like we were talking about earlier for the filming industry, that really I don't think exists today. So it's something you've got to find your niche in a sense. But yeah, I would go for it. If you don't try, that's why I always go back to people say, well, at least you try. If you failed, it's okay. You've tried. You don't have any regrets at the end of the day, because when you're 30, 40 years old, you're saying, I wish I'd done that, or if I had the chance. But everyone has a chance. Everyone can make their chances. So I just think, do it. If you're young, you're in your early 20s, whatever, late teens, you're looking to do something. Now is the best time. Technology is going to empower you. It's going to speed you. If you miss the boat, then you miss the boat. So, but there's no harm in trying. So I think that would be an advice for that. And then you said about sales.
Yeah, someone who wants to follow your footsteps, right? What you're doing now.
I don't know whether I go into sales, but I treat sales like I try and make it more personal. I try and create relationships. It's not just about a transaction. It's not about closing a deal. I want to get to understand the person. I want to build that relationship, and I want to help them. I want to help them. They've got some challenges as a business. I want to help them get through those journeys. Be honest. Be genuine. Be honest. If you can't help, there's no need to say you can. There's no need to do that. But I think there's different styles of salespeople, and I think just need to find out what your style is. And I think there's a great feeling of when you can take a problem and you've understood what the problem is, and you've tried to work with the customer. You got your solution consultant team who are instrumental in helping facilitate what that proposition could look like, and articulating the value. Too many salespeople are going and selling functions and features. We need to sort of be able to focus on actually what is the value that we're going to generate, and personalizing this whole experience. Because I don't know whether you saw my LinkedIn post, and I do this thing called Photo Finish Friday. My last post was, service with a smile, and just trying to make people happy as part of that journey. People to be wanting to be part of that process. You're never going to please everybody. I've been working on some major deals, and things don't always go the way you want it. There's certain reasons why things happen in such a way, but if you know your solutions, your capabilities, if you know and understand the challenges and you listen carefully to the challenges that have been raised, and being able to articulate what we can do with value, I think you'll be able to qualify quickly whether there's an opportunity or not. I think a lot of salespeople I see is that they spend a lot of time chasing things that just are not fully qualified. So, qualification is a key part. And I think going back to the Salesforce time, I think that was something important, an important lesson learned. And, I think combining all these things, being tight on the whole cycle, the sales cycle, keeping people communicating not only to the customer but internally is also important. And I think what I have in my mind is, when you're a customer and you're on a call center, and you're expecting a call to be answered within X rings, or you need to be speaking to someone within 30 seconds or a minute.
Mhm.
There's a service level agreement that basically those companies are measured to make sure that they are delivering a value service. I also put a service level sort of agreement in my own head to make sure that I'm servicing my customers as best as I can, and just to make sure that I'm responsive, I'm there. I use WhatsApp a lot. WhatsApp is the best place. I know people still use emails and stuff, but from a sales point of view, when I start any engagement with champions in organizations, I always start to get permission to message them, share information, and to start building a conversation, because I think having that intimate conversation at any time, it could be any time during the day. I know we're trying to get a certain work-life balance, but in sales, it's always on. So you'll have messages, you'll have all times of the day, in the night, and it's not just about work. Sometimes we send jokes to each other, we send pictures, we send things that we've read, so it's not just about, oh, that's just for work. It becomes a collaborative place just to engage and build a relationship with. So those are, I would say, from a sales point of view, if you love meeting people, you love addressing problems, you love sort of managing that process, being discipline on the hygiene, that's important, which I'm really bad at, but I'm really trying to push myself hard on that, because keeping Salesforce up to date CRM up to date is it needs to be done, because you're communicating to your leadership. But it's something that is hard when you're trying to be in front of customers all the time. But it's a great career, and if you do it well, the rewards are good, right? And you get to go on club, and you get to get good payouts. You get to get recognition. So there's all of that, but the ultimate recognition, I would say, is the value those customers are getting out of it. And you can see it from their smiles. They get their weekends back. For example, some of those customers before Anaplan were working long weekends over holidays just to get the numbers together. Now they can get time with their family. They can enjoy stuff, so
Mhm.
that's it's not for everyone, but when I say it's not for everyone is a salesperson in some shape or form. They will be selling themselves or their company indirectly, but direct field sales is a job that you need to be willing to take the knocks as well as the successes. So yeah.
Yeah, certainly. And I think, Jofi, to your point, one of the golden rules we have is, there's absolutely, one of the best things you can do is have a happy customer. There's nothing bad will come out of a happy customer, right? And I think sometimes the reverse can be true too, is where sometimes people underappreciate the value of a happy customer as well as an upset customer, right? Both of those things can have residual kind of impacts that maybe are a little bit intangible, but ultimately the value of a happy customer is, I think, something that I've seen Anaplan really, really start to focus on more.
Yeah. I think customers are always happy, right? There are times when they are very unhappy, and that's the nature of just business, right? So just because you've got a great solution doesn't mean they're going to be happy all the time. So when they're unhappy, the important thing from sales is to make sure you get all the right people in the room quickly, talk to the customer, understand that you understand what they're facing, and try and come to some sort of resolution. So that's, I would say, one of my sort of areas of sort of specialty. And people have said to me that, you've somehow managed to sort of diffuse that situation. So it's like, no, if there's a situation, call Jofi because he can help broker the situation. So I've been known to be brought into certain things, like especially when I was running my own company, and some of the bigger deals where we've had issues, just being able to think sort of a bit out of the box and just to help sort of get the conversation sort of going back together again. So yeah, it's not always happy, but that's what we're working towards. And yeah, but from unhappy customers, it's just a good opportunity as well to regroup and to get back on track. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Jofi, it's been a great chat and conversation. I think we got to learn a lot about you and your career journey, as well as kind of the exciting things that Anaplan's up to. And hopefully the audience found some value, kind of reflecting on if, there's, depending on what position they are in their career and, where they're trying to steer and where they're trying to go. And any final thoughts for the audience, Jofi?
I'm actually just humbled, right? You guys have selected me to come and talk on your show, and I've seen a lot of episodes, and I never thought that this would be something that I would be doing, but I'm very happy to have done it for you. I'm just quite surprised. We've just done one shoot. I just looked at the time. It's 51 minutes. We didn't stop. We just continued talking. It seemed like only 5-10 minutes, but hopefully it's going to be useful for your show and your series. I wish you all the very success. You're doing a great job. I think these conversations don't really get heard, and I think sometimes people just see the face and they don't know the background. And I think you've given a bit of a, I would say, spotlight on the individual, but this is a journey, and everyone's on their journey. And if it can help anyone who's listening or watching this on how they can, change the way that they're doing things, or the outlook going forward, and if they wanted to help, any advice or further, they're more than happy to reach out to me on LinkedIn, or via yourself. So no, I'm really, it was really great, and I wish you all the best, and looking forward to seeing you coming to the UK or even Africa soon.
Yes, absolutely. I will have to make a trip soon, and we should grab lunch or dinner or something when I'm in the UK next.
Yeah, absolutely. Then thank you so much, and you have a wonderful day.
Absolutely. Cheers.
Take care. Bye-bye.